Hi, Misha here, and anyone who watched the giant AK collection video I recently posted might have noticed a gun that's been on the channel for a number of years was absent. And that's because it's going away. This is one of the very, very few times you'll hear me sell and import from an actual arms factory, replacing it with a domestic-made commercial version variant in the Kalashnikov family. And I wanted to give my reasons why the Bulgarian Arsenal SLR106CR is going away, being replaced by the KUSA KP104. So we'll go over the reasons and in the end, see if you agree or not. And as always, if you could, please like, share, subscribe. Patreon helps out a lot, especially as we get into the hot summer with all that going on. So with no further ado, let's dive in. So the Kalashnikov USA, the KUSA KP104, this one's in nearly stock configuration, except I installed an extended booster so I could also install a buttstock, because these are sold originally as pistols. The only other change I made was I took off the standard 1000-meter rear sight and put on a 500. Also, I corrected the safety issue. And here it is with the 30-round mag. The Bulgarian gun comes in as a carbine because of the 1968 Gun Control Act. You cannot import Class 3, and because of various other reasons, it wasn't practical to import these as pistols, they thought. So it comes in with a 16-inch barrel. A long time ago, I cut it down, although originally it had this style of hider. At the moment, it has an extended conical pin welded on. And that's about the only noteworthy change they did. The KUSA is chambered in 7.62 by 39, and the Arsenal is chambered for 5.56 NATO 223. Thus, this is effectively a clone of the Russian AK-104, and this is effectively said to be a clone of the Russian AK-102. So what that means in the series, of course, it began with the AK-74M in Izhevsk, which became Izhmash, and that was the 5.45 version with a 16-inch barrel, and its counterpart with the 12.5-inch barrel was the AK-105. For export, around 1994, Izhmash released the AK-101 in 5.56 with a 16-inch barrel, and the AK-102 with a 12.5-inch as the carbine. The AK-103 was the 7.62 by 39 counterpart, with the AK-104 being the carbine version. So, how successful were their originals? Well, that leads me into reason number one for keeping the KUSA and selling the Arsenal. The AK-102, the military version, was only for export, and it received very little attention. Even the AK-101 received pretty little, but the 102 very, very little. Only a couple of nations purchased these in tiny numbers. I think Thailand might have picked up a couple, and Indonesia might have picked up a couple, but it wasn't anything important, frankly. The 104, on the other hand, actually was pretty successful. Sometimes within Russia, certain federal security forces would use these along with the AK-103, which was actually pretty successful within Russia. But on the export market, the 103 and 104 did pretty well. In fact, they have been made under license in both Iran and Venezuela, and used there by their militaries and half a dozen others. I'm not going to say huge numbers, but more so than the 102 because 7.62 by 39 is still quite popular. And of course, they had the benefit of feeding from standard magazines. Now, of course, this is the Bulgarian 20-round mag, but even in Russia, of course, the 223 versions have their own magazines. So yeah, historically speaking, militarily speaking, the 104 was more successful than the 102. Number 2, authenticity. You would think, being made at Arsenal, Bulgaria, Circle 10, this would be an authentic clone copy and semi-auto of an AK-102, but it's not. That's because Arsenal, Bulgaria never had the TDP, let's call it that, for the AK-100 series. Those were unique to Russia and nations that they licensed to produce like Venezuela. Bulgaria was not one of them. So what is this? Well, it's basically an AK-74 with their own variant of the front sight gas blight combo. Full length piston. But then looking back here, we do have the 500 meter rear sight. That's good. But we have an AK-74 style stamped receiver, ribbed top cover, and 4.5 millimeter folding stock hinge, all that stuff. There are plenty of other differences, but there's a few just to think about. You look at the KUSA, and it has a Russian style combo block, smooth top cover, a modern AK-100 series style receiver, complete with the bump rivet. Notice that doesn't have it. And the modern scope rail. Yes, both have rails, but this is the older style. This is the newer. And it has the newer 5.5 mil hinge pin. Quick way to tell them in a pinch, there's a little cutout here, and there isn't on this side. Flipping them over, we can notice a different pattern of bolt. And this has a straight cleaning rod. I should point out that when these ship with the 16-inch barrel, you get a long rod. Well, this is a short Bulgarian rod that came out of a different gun, but notice it is a straight. On the KUSA gun, much as with an Izhmash or Kalashnikov concern, there's a small step down right here. Tiny detail, but good to see. So just little things like that. The rib top cover is kind of the big telltale, though, frankly. Now, the 104 does ship with the correct type booster, but you get the wrong rear sight. The 106 does have the right rear sight, but you've got to do something about the barrel. It's much easier to turn, well, I mean, pinning welding, just whatever. You have to put on a stock and pin and weld for this gun, and you have to cut the barrel, pin and weld it, so whichever you consider. I would say the KUSA is easier to do as well, but more and more it's just more important. And internally, this one just resembles a 74 more. Now you might think, well, Bulgaria at least makes this pattern for military customers. Maybe, but when you look at their Select Fire website, their Bulgarian-based website, while they do have versions with the 12.5-inch barrel and combo device and full-length gas system, they're on milled receivers, not stamped. I'm getting the very strong impression this whole SLR106 series was made for the U.S. commercial domestic market, and it wasn't really based on a direct military product. It's up to you. We've debated it for years. We've even debated who actually makes these stamped receivers. ISD. But either we're here or there. I suspect it could be more of a commercial offering. And speaking of that, the histories of these, as in reliability. Again. Number 3, the KP104, at least in our experience, has a better track record. These are made here, so they have a standard receiver and mag catch and everything, as is how they're made from the get-go. This gun, being an import, has to be unable to accept a 20 or 30 round mag until it gets in the USA, so they are modified here. And that has led to some troubles. The mag wells cutout is fine, but where we sometimes have issues are with the mag catch here and the clearance of this plate back here and pushing the magazine a little too high up, which can cause feeding issues and other complications. You can read about it. The internet is always kind of overstates the issue, but there were issues. In fact, Arsenal did have kind of a recall batch. Some were also built with the wrong bullet guide installed because they came over without a bullet guide. Again, these were done a long time ago. On the other hand, we really don't know which ones were affected because when these were imported versus when they were converted here were sometimes two very different things. So if you pick up any of the 106 FR, CR, URs, go shoot it, make sure it runs. This one runs really well. I will say before we cut the barrel, when it had a 16-inch barrel, because these come in with a gas port meant for a 12.5-inch, it was a little over gassed, which actually led to maybe slightly overclocking the bolt travel, which could sometimes let the bolt overrun the feed from the mag. But once the barrel was cut down to 12.5 inches, for one thing, it was a softer shooting gun, and for another, reliability went up. We didn't have major reliability issues, just, like 1 or 2 rounds out of 100, maybe 3, just things like that. It was a little sensitive, but nothing too horrible. But it was meant to have the shorter barrel, you could tell. And you don't have to remove a donut from these when you do that. The 104, on the other hand, just at least our example here, it runs great. It's very soft shooting. Of course, it's 7.62 by 39, not 5.56, so it's a lower pressure round, bigger round. But I've kind of grown to really trust this. People have even reported other strange issues with the SLR106 series that no reason to get into. Again, the internet kind of overdoes it, but they're not as bulletproof as we'd like them to be, especially not compared to other Arsenal guns. So this is one of the few times when a domestic gun may actually be as good or better quality when it comes to that. Both have essentially 1mm receivers, although since this is technically based on the AK100 series, it is slightly thicker than this. Both have cold hammer forged chrome lined barrels, although I would think the Bulgarian barrel might be slightly better. Who really knows? They are at least the same specs, so yeah. And both take standard handguards, pistol grips. Both do have the reinforcing plate. Again, this has the 5.5mm hinge. This has the 4.5, so that's more correct as well. Finally, of course, this takes standard mags. And we've actually had really good luck with the KUSA made ones. The Bulgarian mags have an interesting reputation. I've personally found them to be quite good, but I think no one can argue that the 7.62 by 39 Bulgarian mags are better. Sometimes these are finicky, especially the clear ones, but neither here nor there. Reason number 4, value, desirability. The KUSA went through a bit of a rough patch last year for reasons we don't need to go into, but again, just only talking about the guns, not the company, we've had excellent luck. Your mileage, I'm sure, may vary. These are in production, actually just introduced and made in the USA. So pretty safe. And they're reasonably priced for what they are. The Arsenal 106, especially the CR, but any of the 106s, have not come in several years, and Arsenal has said the line is discontinued. Now, Arsenal says a lot of things. They could release more tomorrow, but they've been out of stock for a very, very long time, a number of years. And if you look at the trunnion dates, they actually did not import many since 2009, 2010, at least, bare bones sporter guns, although they took several years to convert what they had. So if you see one that has like a 47 or 48 or 49, that's 2007, 2008, 2009. That's the date of the original sporting gun, but not when it was converted in the USA. And of course they are an import, and they are from Arsenal. And the CR is a less common variant compared to, say, the F or FR. So my point is, there's more of a market for these. More desirability. So, in this instance, and I don't want to keep both, one needs to go, it will be simply easier, quicker, to sell this one, and I know people are out there looking for them. And since we're actually quite happy with this one, it's one of those rare times when we actually don't want to keep what is maybe objectively the more desirable gun. So, yeah. Now, when it comes to Arsenals, and I said this in the other video, I like their mill guns. That just seems to be Arsenal to me. That's Arsenal. But, yeah. It's kind of like people, when it comes to Zastava AKs, they want the 1.5mm receiver, not the 1.0 from Zastavas. So, hey, it's what kind of separates for them. What do you think? Which way would you go? So, those are my reasons. Do you agree or disagree? And with which ones? I'm feeling pretty confident about it. I hope someone does enjoy the Arsenal here. It is a good gun, otherwise I wouldn't push it along. But, no matter what I did to it, I put on a smooth Russian top cover, a few other things. It never was even a 102. Whereas this, aside from having to put an extension on it, it's really close to an AK-104. The only other option that might have been better, a few years ago, Feynman imported a small run of SGL-22s, which came in as carbines, not pistols. They had the combo front sight gas block, and they had the 16-inch barrel sticking out, so you could cut the barrel down. The problem with those, they had the standard fixed stock rear trunnion. So replacing a fixed rear trunnion with a folding, it can be done for sure. They had the kit for the stock, but it's not easy. You need a gunsmith who really knows what they're doing. Otherwise, they'll goob it up. And of course, it didn't have the reinforcing plate either. It just didn't seem worth it to me. I never got one, but I think that might be the only way to get something more authentic than this. And as far as I know, those were only in 7.62x39. I don't recall a 545 version. And these, Arsenal did, of course, the SLR106CR, which was in 7.62x39. And they were about to release the SLR104CR, but only a handful of prototypes made it over before they decided not to do the 5.45x39 version. I think years ago, K-Bar actually sold off a few of them online. But no, they're mill guns. Now, have they ever done a mill combo gun? Sort of. There was the SA M7SFC. It was one of the limited production guns built in Las Vegas using a quote-unquote US receiver around 2005. I never owned one, but I did get to handle one once. And pretty neat, but also considerably heavier. And I like the combo size. I think this 12.5-inch size is perfect. It's longer, more reliable, better range than, say, an AKS-74U crank, but you do save a good amount of weight and some length compared to a standard AK-74M, AK-101, 103. So, that's where we're at. Those are my reasons. What are yours? Of course, there is one final thing. Never gets old. I'm going to keep the KP104 as a carbine. That's because I don't want to marry it, meaning I don't want to file SBR paperwork. Because while I do like this better than this, while it's got the right look, if and when the, KP105, the 545 version comes out, I'm very likely to want it. So this could itself be a temporary placeholder until something even better comes along. However, even at that, I'm not 100% sure. I will make that decision when the day comes because of the situation with the 545x39 ammo. Years ago, it was pretty gettable, even after the 7 and 6 ban around 2011 or whatever it was, or 14. But now, with Russia cut off and really only Romania, the only nation still making the ammo at all, and that coming in very small numbers, unless a domestic manufacturer crops up for 5.45 millimeter and it's a reasonable price, practically speaking, either one of these would be a better choice. 5.56 or 7.62x39. I'm not worried about 7.62x39 getting shut off because there are too many guns chambered for it, not only in the USA but around the world. So someone will make it for us, even if there might be a small drought here and there. So this might be the more logical one to keep if you want to shoot it. So we will we will see. That I'll make that decision when I have to. For now, I don't. So yeah. That's my strange reasoning. I know, it's very strange for me to keep a domestic and sell an import, but I really couldn't justify keeping both. In fact, I put off this decision several months where we shot this one. But this gun has proved to be 100% reliable. I think the only jams or failures we had was with one wonky Bakelite mag in the original video. Other than that, with good mags and the factory mags, it's been great. And I do hope whoever ends up with this one really enjoys it too, because it is a good gun. I would not be selling it unless this one came around. But there we have it, folks. Shorter video today. If you'd like to know more about the history of the AK100 series, we've done a video or two on it, meaning probably over a dozen. You can check those out. And as always, if you could, please like, share, subscribe, and feel free to go check out the link on Patreon. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.